The CBA has passed, and Adam, I see that you are receiving information as we speak, but there has been a majority from that player pool of roughly 2,500 have voted to pass the CBA. What more can you tell us?
Well, Hannah, here's how close the vote was. The yes votes were 1,019. The no votes were 959. So you see the discrepancy right there, a vote difference of about 60. That's how close it is. But simple majority in this particular case wins. And so the NFL now gets labor peace for the next 10 years through the 2030 season. The players' share of benefits rise from 47% of the total revenue to 48.5% of the total revenue. The 17-game regular season now comes on in 2021. There'll be an expanded playoff field, I believe, this upcoming season in 2020. And, of course, this was a vote that had a lot of controversy to it, a lot of differing opinions. A lot of people weren't sure whether they should vote for it or against it. You heard proponents of this or opponents of this from J.J. Watt and Richard Sherman and the Pouncey brothers. Aaron Rodgers speaking out against this particular proposal. And again, keep in mind, this was before the coronavirus hit and the financial markets failed and everything went crazy here in this country the last couple of weeks. And it would be interesting to see what the vote would be now, but they wouldn't let, the player board wouldn't let the players change their votes. And many of these votes were cast a couple of weeks back. But as it is, the votes came in. They narrowly approved this measure that puts into stance the new CBA here, 10 more years, and that is obviously got huge ramifications for the rest of the NFL, Hannah.
Yeah, it goes through the 2030 season, and as you mentioned, that new CBA was sent to players for a vote all the way back on March 5th before we saw this series of events, particularly over the last few days. What did the NFL players avoid by passing this? You mentioned that potentially we could have seen a work stoppage.
Well, Hannah, I really believe this, and we could say this now. I believe that the owners would not have taken kindly to a rejection of the CBA. And many people were saying and believed that if you voted no on this current proposal, and many people did, 959 people voted no to this CBA that just got passed, that a no vote was a yes to a work stoppage. And so that's how significant this was today. Really, the choices were this. Either there was going to be labor peace through the 2030 season, or there was the real threat and chance that after next season that there would be a work stoppage for the 2021 season, that the 2020 season would be the final one of the CBA. And so that's why this is so significant today, is because, again, the NFL will go on for the next 10 years, the next decade, and it won't be any interruptions. And also, let's keep in mind the benefits that former players get, the added benefits that they will get. I think it's 450 of them immediately get $50,000. There's increased funds to the pension of former players. So I can't imagine that there was a single former player who was against this, and it benefits the former players tremendously, the CBA. Again, now the players hated the idea of that 17th regular season game. And that's the main reason I believe this drew such opposition and so many people speaking out against this current CBA vote, that these players, they don't want an extra game added. And it does seem hypocritical of the NFL, which has preached health and safety of players, adding on a 17th regular season game and adding on to the playoff field by allowing one other additional team into the playoffs starting in 2020. So it is hypocritical, and that's why I think a lot of players were turned off. But also, much of this debate occurred before the coronavirus devastated our country. And so, again, it's just such a fluid situation. And in the end, the majority prevailed. They needed a simple majority. They got 1,019 yes votes. They got 959 no votes, but because of the simple majority here, it passes and labor peace prevails.
However, there is still such a measure of uncertainty about where we go from here. In particular, the league year is supposed to start on Wednesday, but with so many systems on so many levels shutting down right now in our country because of the coronavirus pandemic, what questions are there about the league schedule going forward?
Well, this is the next issue that now needs to be tackled and addressed right away. Teams, I can tell you, are almost universal in their widespread skepticism. They can't believe that the league year can begin on Wednesday. The league has been adamant that it's going to start the league year on Wednesday, and those plans remain in place. Now, again, this country is dealing with much more major issues, much more significant issues than NFL free agency. So let's be very clear about that. But if we're just going to talk from a football sports perspective, free agency usually involves visits to teams' training facilities, physicals, thought process for these players and teams. And so that's hard to do when we're in this current situation right now. But then again, what's to say it's going to be better if the league pushes it back 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, whatever it may be? We don't know. And so that is the next big decision that the NFL faces, and all I can go by is what the league has said up until now, that they're planning to start the league year on Wednesday until further notice, and beyond that, on Monday, the teams have until 11:59 a.m. to use their franchise tags on players, because now that the CBA has passed, each team only gets one tag. That's another effect of this whole situation where the Cowboys can't tag Dak Prescott and Amari Cooper. And then at noon on Monday, the legal tampering period is supposed to start. So it's hard to start legal tampering when teams and players could enter into agreements on contracts when you're going to be pushing back the league year. You can't do that. And so there's a sense of urgency here that the league has to figure out and announce, I think, what its plans are for the coming week and what it's doing. And that becomes some of the next big discussions that I'm sure the NFL is having right now.